Happy day, everybody, and welcome back to Mortgage Talk with Mark. We're back to the studio with a special guest of mine named Sam Parker, and we are streaming this in from Iowa. So he's not here. I've never met Sam, but he has a reputation in my industry that exceeds pretty much anybody that I'm aware of. Because as a mortgage broker, I'm involved pretty heavily, intimately with a group called Brokers Are Better. And we got a huge community on Facebook. And anytime anybody talks about credit or credit scoring, Sam is the man they're pointing to. So I reached out to him. Actually, his company has helped me on several occasions with my clients, but this is my first time to actually engage with Sam on a video like this. So I want to just take a minute and introduce Sam Parker, who owns My Credit Guy, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it. Yeah, my name's Sam. I'm from Iowa originally, and I fell into credit repair, credit optimization actually when I was about 20 years old. I was in between semesters in college actually, and somebody said the right thing to me. They said, "Do you want to come and help run a sales and marketing department for our startup company?"
Awesome.
I took them at their word, and I showed up, and it was just a phone and a bunch of names of people that had less than perfect credit. And by then I had already dropped out of school and pursued that. So it took me about 9 months to get my feet under me, and then decided to go out on my own, that it could be done better. And so started our first company, ran that for about 3.5 years, sold to a competitor, worked with them for about 6 years, and then started My Credit Guy in 2015 when we moved out to Arizona, and, helped a lot of people get in houses since then.
Awesome. And because this is such an interesting topic, because I've been in the mortgage space for 40 years, and credit's always been a big part of getting a loan, and how much you can save people with good credit or how much it can cost them, on the other hand, with poor credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they may not qualify at all. So people don't, I wouldn't say don't respect it, but they don't understand the credit system in this country very well. There's some
Yeah.
sort of a mystery around it. So let's kind of talk about credit models. Number one, we call it the FICO score in the mortgage space. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so FICO was an independent third-party company that went out and created this scoring model that calculates how likely you are to go late on something in the next 24 months. So it's a risk mitigation model for banks, basically, right? So there's some confusion out there because, especially in 2025, everybody thinks that they should start with an A based on them being a great person and then go from there, right? And it's just not like that in credit scoring. You got to earn your A. So it's a third-party company that, again, was set up to calculate this. And then the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, they receive that information, they apply it through this calculation, FICO, and then boom, pops out your credit score, right? There is also a Vantage scoring system. Now, that's a name that people aren't that familiar with, but if you are pulling your credit online through like a free credit pull, more than likely it's a Vantage score, not a FICO score. You're usually having to pay for FICO. Vantage scores are free or cheap for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're not the big name yet, and that could change here in the next couple of years. People will become more familiar if they are entered into the mortgage qualification arena. But number two, a lot of those credit reports or free credit monitoring services are being paid for by someone else. And I always remind people, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product, right?
I got
And
it.
so Vantage Score is going to be more synonymous with like freecreditreport.com or freewhatever.com, or getting, a lot. Well, there are credit cards that supply you with your FICO now, but a lot of times when you get a free report, it's going to be that Vantage model. Now, one thing I will tell you about Vantage that's a fun fact that no one's really hearing, and it seems like until maybe it's too late, is that Vantage was started by Equifax, Experian, TransUnion.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they teamed up to make this. So what happened was back pre-2020, back 2016, 2017, they were going through, or they're considering an overhaul of the credit scoring system, or how people could be qualified. And so they said, hey, anybody out there that has a credit scoring model other than FICO, we want to see it. And there were hundreds of applications. And
Mm.
out of all those applications, they just happened to choose the conglomeration of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, who are the receivers of the most complaints by consumers on a yearly basis. So it's just kind of weird that we brought in a new sheriff in town, but the sheriff happens to be the outlaw.
That's right. At the same time, you know,
Yeah.
in my experience, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but over the years, people have when they call in for a mortgage and they want to get pre-qualified, they say, "Well, I've already got my credit run, or my score is 720 or whatever." And a lot of times, once we run the FICO model internally, it's lower, generally
Yep.
speaking, it's because it's a different algorithm, from what I understand.
Yep,
You know, so
absolutely.
I want to make sure people are clear when you're getting a mortgage loan, and I think this is universally that everybody's going to use a FICO score, correct?
Uh, we
No?
don't know that because right now there's a huge push that to add Vantage 4.0 as an additional option. So
Okay.
if they get their way, then here in another year or 2 years, when you go to pull credit on somebody, you're going to have multiple options. You could go FICO or you could go Vantage.
Okay. I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, I don't see Vantage phasing out unless somebody somewhere along the line goes, hey, wait, could this possibly be best for consumers that you guys are really running all the show now, the scoring algorithm and the data? Like, I think that there should be some additional checks and balances. I think that having a third party calculation is what's best for the consumer, but
Yeah.
we'll see how this plays out. As of right now, though, there is a very clear path to Vantage 4.0 being included in the mortgage process in the very near future.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. But let's go back, if we could, back to the FICO model, because that's what we're using today,
Yep.
and explain a little bit about the different key factors that go into the score, so people get a
Yeah.
better understanding what how it works.
Yep. So there's 5 pieces of the pie, and I'll kind of go auctioneer style through them really fast, and then we
Okay.
can circle back. Okay.
Sure.
So number one makes up 35%. More than a 30-year credit score is your pay history. Do you pay your bills on time? This is calculating your monthly payments. It's calculating if you have late pays, if you go 30, 60, 90, 120, or if you go to a collection, charge off, profit and loss status. So the question that's being asked of this section is, do you pay your bills on time? And if you don't, how far did you let them go? Was it a single instance, or is this habitual, or did you let somebody totally go? Again, the reason being that the scoring algorithm is built for banks to see if they should lend you money. So
Right.
what they're looking at is, you want money from me. How did you treat the last person that lent you money? Right. And
Right.
so that's what this is letting them know.
Okay.
So that's the biggest piece of the pie is 35%. The next is 30%. It's called credit usage, but it's what I call the credit card section. The reason being that there are really 2 big types of accounts when it comes to credit. There's installment loans, which is going to be like your car loan, student loan,
Mortgage loan.
Yep, exactly. So think of that process. Before you were ever given money, you were kind of put through the ringer. Make sure who you are, you got a job, you can afford it. We determined how long you were going to pay us and how much you were going to pay us. The risk has really been mitigated before, right?
Okay.
But this section of the scoring algorithm is looking at how you treat your credit cards. So not only do you have them, but do you use them? And then do you use them wisely? And it is a damned if you do, damned if you don't section of the scoring algorithm, because if you don't use credit cards at all, you're not going to rack up the pay history. You're not going to show them that you're a good candidate to give a bunch of money to risk, their money on. But if you use it too much, they seem a little overextended. I'm spooked. I don't want to be the next in line. Or if I am the next in line, they're paying me more in interest so that or PMI, mortgage insurance, so that I can kind of, hedge my bets here.
Mitigate the risk. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. So
that's exactly what happens, by the way. The
Yeah.
lower the score, the higher the interest rate, and the higher the mortgage insurance.
Exactly. You're paying, and people don't understand that either. You are paying insurance on yourself because they're worried about you not making your payment. That's what PMI is. It's like somebody sold you a car, but they think you're going to crash it probably. So they make you carry extra insurance just in case you did. Right.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, exactly. So, so people don't realize that that's there. So anyway, sorry, I digress. The 30% for credit cards, you also want to know the thresholds to keep your credit cards paid down to, because they're very real. Once you go over 50% on your balance to limit ratio on a credit card, you are sending up red flags to the credit cards and to the credit scoring algorithm, saying I'm a little overextended. I might not have enough cash to cover my lifestyle. That whether it's true or not, and I'll sit here and go, but that's not true for me. I have an Amex. I rack up every month because I get the points and then I pay it down, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay because I'm making that payment before that information is sent to the bureaus. But there's things that you have to know about your credit cards, like these thresholds of 50%, 30%, floating between 5 and 10% to get the maximum out of your credit score for that. But then you also have to know your reporting dates, because if your due date is on the 26th, but the credit card company reports all of their information on the 20th or on the 15th, then the payment that you make is not being reflected in the scoring algorithm, and it's showing you as carrying a larger balance on a month-to-month basis. So you have to make sure also to know when your credit card reports to the credit bureaus, and you want to make your payment 72 hours or 3 business days before that information is batched. And then that way, if you're paying your cards down or off every month, you're making sure to get fresh information to them.
That's I always assumed that they always report at the same time, each card. So you can actually find out the Discover reports on this date, or
yeah, you can just call
your
them
Visa.
up. You can call them up. Some of them have it in like your back office or like your dashboard. But a lot of them, if you just call them up and you say, hey, I was just wondering, when do you report my information to the credit bureaus? A lot of the maybe undereducated phone reps might just confuse. I didn't want to say that they're not educated. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying about this particular
Situation.
instance, they might be a little confused and go, oh, well, your payment due date's the 26th, and you're going to have to clarify and go, no. When do you send my balance information to Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion on a monthly basis? And then they should have that reporting date for you.
Got it. Now I want to go back just a second, because you talked about late payments, 30, 60, 90, etc. Let's say we take a 30-day late on a Visa card versus a 30-day late on an installment loan like a mortgage. Are they weighed differently as far as
they could be, depending on your overall credit makeup. But what I always tell people is that there is no little late pay. Like a mortgage late is the end all be all. You don't want a mortgage late for multiple reasons, both score and just loan qualification guidelines. Some loan programs, you can't even qualify for the next 12 months if you have a mortgage late, right? But what I tell people is, and the general rule of thumb is that little $15 minimum payment on Discover can hurt you almost as much or as much as your biggest payment. So there is no little late pay. And really what it comes down to is what your overall credit profile is. On a couple ways, and now I'm gonna kind of go into a rabbit hole. But the weird thing about credit is the higher your credit gets, the more fragile it is. So let's say that somebody with an 820 credit score adds a mortgage late. There's a good chance that takes them down 100 points. Wow. If somebody with a 650 credit score adds a mortgage late, there's a good chance that takes them down 30 to 40 points, just because it's not as pristine, it's not as fragile as that nice high 820 credit score. So credit scores are a little funky. They're a little weird like that, where there's some things that it's like, that just doesn't seem quite fair. And it's like, you got to remember, it wasn't designed for the consumer. It was designed to protect the banks.
The other day I was I thought I'd paid off my Capital One card. I have several credit cards, and then I went online and I still owed $3.26.
Yep.
And had I not noticed that, I would have let it ride, because I didn't know I even owed it, but I obviously paid it. But that sort of thing sometimes will slip through the cracks,
Well, that we'll have people all the time who closed out cards or didn't have a balance. That annual fee will hit them, or they'll close it out and some little balance, that the remaining interest from 2 months ago's went through for $2.64, and now they have a late pay. on a two, and we'll, you know, a lot of times we can get a hold of the credit card company and talk some sense to them, and they're willing to accommodate, especially if it's an isolated incident. They'll do a goodwill action for us, but there's stuff like that all the time where it just slips through the cracks and all of a sudden 30-day late pay.
That sort of leads into a conversation now I want to have about your business particularly. What does My Credit Guy specialize in? What's your normal day-to-day operation? Who are your clients? Who wants to find Sam Parker?
Yeah, well, what we do is a little different than credit repair companies. We call ourselves credit optimization, just because we're not looking for only people who have those negative marks on their credit. What we do is we help lenders all across the country help get their clients to a closing table so that they can qualify for financing for their family. And the way that we do that is that when a lender runs across somebody, and it doesn't have to be just a lender. And if you're out there and you're seeing this, you're like, man, I'm not even in the mortgage process. We can chat with you, no problem, right?
Sure.
But most people come to us with that goal of home ownership in mind, or we at least want to get them to a place where when that is their goal, that credit is not an issue, right? That's our bar. So what we'll do is we'll look at a credit report and we're looking for things that can be improved. So first and foremost, I'm looking for things that don't require the client to spend any time or money with me, which is going to be credit cards. We're going to see, do they have enough positive trade lines? If they do have enough positive trade lines, are they using them correctly? If they don't have enough, we're helping them establish new positive trade lines. Like for instance, there's a $200 secured card that reports to all three bureaus, usually within about 3 weeks. That takes effect on the credit profile months faster than some other credit cards. So sometimes it's as simple as, hey, you just need to open something up or sign on with your husband or your wife as a authorized user on a card that you're already paying on. It could be that we're telling them pay your credit cards down to this exact amount because of those thresholds that we talked about earlier, and then that's getting them the boost. If we're looking at things like collections, charge-offs, profit and loss, what we're doing is interviewing the client, figuring out what they disagree with and why, because there's their perception of it and there's reality, right, Mark? So you might have somebody, and I know that you've
There's
heard
always reality, yeah.
Oh my gosh, so you've heard this one. Well, that's not mine. That was hers in the divorce. That was his in the divorce, right? And we have to be like, hey, listen, you are still financially obligated to this because a divorce decree does not supersede a pre-existing contract. Now, is your ex in contempt of this court order? Sure, right? And we can deal with that. But as of right now, you know, they might have a $276 payment that's holding them back. And they're like, but that's his. And I'm like, I understand that. But is it worth it because it's on your report? Can we just get it taken care of and then move forward, right? So there's that kind of interview where we go through
educational platform, really.
Exactly. And then if there's things on there they disagree with, we are going to bat for them against the credit bureaus and that original creditor, making sure that what they're reporting is correct. And if it's not, then we're getting those updates. If it is, we're getting 100% legal verification that a debt is valid, and then we're jumping on the phone with that client and our debt resolution department and getting that debt resolved, settled out, pay for deletion, whatever we can do to save the client the most money while getting the most points. And that whole time they're teamed up with a credit coach that walks them through everything, stays in constant communication with you, the loan officer, Mark, with the client, and just answers all those questions. Because I think that most lenders and realtors out there would be amazed, and it would probably make most borrowers feel better to know other people don't know more about credit than you do. Most people don't know much, if anything, other than the very basics. So,
that's right.
So it's important.
Let's kind of hit on some of those laws that protect consumers. Can you talk about that? You know, it's not just a black hole. There's actually things you can do legally.
Right. So you got the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and basically that just says that what you're reporting must be 100% not only accurate, but verifiable. So just because that was my debt at one point, you still have to have all your ducks in a row to show on a monthly basis at my request that item is right. That's you know, my right as a consumer. You must furnish that. Now, I shouldn't say monthly basis, because if I ask you for it, you supply it and it's there. And if I ask you for it again next month, you can just say, hey, we already did the investigation. 6 months from now, you can ask another question. Or they'll say, if you have additional supporting evidence, go ahead and send that over, right? So you got the FCRA, and that just basically makes sure that everybody's reporting correctly. If they don't report correctly, then a consumer can pursue them. So that's why, like, when a client we try to speak reason to clients, because a lot of credit repair companies out there just say, we have that special sauce. We'll get everything deleted. We know all the secrets or whatever, right? And it's just not the way it goes. And what we want clients to understand is that these laws are in place to hold the creditors and credit bureaus accountable. But if it comes back 100% verified, they have their ducks in a row. They don't want to get fined $10,000. So if you dispute something and it gets verified, it means that they're sitting on the other side, not going like, ha, 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 but they're going, okay, 1, 2, 3 boxes checked. Yep, we can legally report this, right? And so it's a client. The truth is the client's best friend, because when a client just sits there and they're like, that should be deleted, it should be deleted, it should be deleted, and we're like, why would it be? You took the money out, you didn't pay it back, like they can verify it, like why, like what are we doing here, right? And so that's what we really try to do, is keep a client grounded, where they're understanding this is a process of resolution, right? This is a process of atonement in some cases, but what you get at the other side of it is peace. Because when you go to apply for something and your income is in place and you walk in there knowing that you have a 750 plus credit score, your head's held high and you know you're going to get qualified, right? Like you know that's right.
Yeah. Well, getting back to before we get too far in left of the time, let us know how to get a hold of the My Credit Guy.
Yeah. So mycreditguy.com.
You mentioned coaching a minute ago. I said, well, maybe it's My Credit Coach too, you know?
Yeah. There's been so many different names that we want. We own My Credit Gal too. And we're like, we should really, even it out. My Credit Guy, My Credit Gal, because our company is like run, like I'm like one of 4 dudes at the company. Like it's run by amazing women. But if they want to get a hold of us, mycreditguy.com. Okay, so just that simple, mycreditguy.com. You can go on there and say, hey, give me a free review or give me a free demo, whatever you want. And then you can also call us 866-726-7339. Either way, you can get a hold of us, and my email or our email is parkerteam@mycreditguy.com.
And I've been so impressed with y'all's responsive nature too. You get back with us right away. There's no, waiting around to speak of, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I really demand that. It's funny, we went to Brokers Are Better, Now Brokers Are Best convention, years ago. And, whether you love him or hate him, I heard Ishbia talk, and he has done amazing things, with that company. And he said one thing that I knew, but he just kind of put it in cement, is whether you got good news or bad news, deliver it fast. Everybody wants fast updates, and speed kills, right? Yeah. And so that's what we try to do, is like, this is an anxious time. People are depressed sometimes that they're not qualifying for a home loan. They feel less than, because they're usually trying to get it for them and their family. They have dreams of the future, right? And so whether it's going to hurt or, you rip the Band-Aid off. Hey, listen, you have 6 months in front of you. You need to set funds aside. We can get you there, but you got to do it like this. Just shoot it to them straight and get after it, and work hard, and let them see you working hard. And, we have borrowers pop out the other side every single day because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give them hope. They may not be able to buy today, but in 6 months or 9 months, that's a different situation. So that's good. Now, before we only got a few minutes left, and you hit on something before the show. We were talking offline about medical collections.
Yeah.
And what's going on. There's some new rules around that. And I want to make sure we hit that.
Yeah. So if you rewind 2 years, medical collections of any kind could be on the report. You'd see a $15 medical collection all the way up to a $20,000 medical collection, right? The update, the most recent update that actually went into effect was that medical collections of $500 and less could not be reported. So now it's only supposed to be $500 and more on the report. It also was only a 6-month warning time from the time that a medical collector was going to report to the time that they could report. Now it's 12 months. So they can say, hey, listen, we're going to report you, but then you got a year to make good on it, right? Okay. So what was supposed to happen was that that all medical collections were supposed to have been removed from the credit report as of March 17th. But
all of them,
everything medical was supposed to have come off the credit report. But with the new administration coming in, the shakeup with the with the governing bodies of, you know, the mortgage and financial, the CFPB, FTC, all that good stuff, right? There's a lot going on right now. A stay was issued on that ruling that took it to June 15th. And even then, that's for time to decide whether or not to keep it. I personally, and I'm not going to say whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I personally think it's going to get scrapped. That's just my prediction. The reason being what I outlined in the beginning of where the credit scoring algorithm came from, and it's to protect banks and their money. And I really feel that they feel, the other side feels, that they've already made concessions, you know, up to $500. You know, we're not getting on the little ticky tacky stuff. I disagree, just because the price of everything has gone up, right? So when you have an emergency, you have an ambulance ride, you have anesthesia, you have the EMT, and you have the emergency room doc, and every one of those bills could be over $500. So
I'm sure
there's still some work to be done on it, but
maybe 5,000. That'd be a good number. 5,000.
Yeah, that, you know, it might be because then maybe you could say, hey, you knew what you were doing, or I don't know. Even then, I just hear so many stories, and I just feel so much for our customers. I don't hear anybody coming in and saying, hey, I went and got a BBL or hair transplants, and that's why I have medical debt. They say my kid got sick, or I got cancer, and I was between jobs, and I only had this insurance, and it's like, God dang it. Like,
I know it's tough.
Yeah,
it really is. We've only got a few seconds left, man. This thing has gone by so fast, Sam, and I really appreciate your time. Give us some last words of encouragement, or something people need to know about credit.
Yeah, what I would say is that credit is a fair system. Credit is set up so that every one of us can maximize our opportunities and build towards a better future. Credit does not come down to how much money you make, what race you are, what gender you are. Credit does not know who your daddy or your mommy was, or anything like that. Credit only looks at the opportunities given to you and then how you treat them. Credit is always on a ratio. So somebody with a $500 credit card that uses better practices than somebody with a $50,000 credit card is going to have a better credit score. So credit is fair. Just dig into it.
All right, man. I appreciate the time again. We are out of time this time, but it may be something we can bring you back and finish some more of these questions. I've got much more to talk about, but I appreciate you to being on today.